It's amazing to see the, I guess, the energy which has been created around the startup ecosystem in a relatively short space of time. We've been running the York Butter Factory now for a little over 2.5 years, and equally at Venture Capital, and really we couldn't do what we do without the partnerships which exist, and I think that that's now well and truly transcended to represent an event like tonight. So, you know, ecosystems really rely upon partnerships, and that's partnerships which transcend the boundaries of government. So the support that was announced by the honourable member was obviously fantastically received, and will be obviously put to great use. But equally, it's about how Australia puts itself on the map as an ecosystem, as a startup hub, as a feeder to the global environment. So I'm certainly looking forward to talking about that and how we all can play a part into the future.
Thank you. I'm the easy government guy, so come see me. I think that the role for government is a little unique in an environment like this. First and foremost, ours is to create the infrastructure, and as Lenny and the Minister were talking about, create the circumstances where these sorts of things can flourish. So we have things like the education system. We have in Victoria more graduates in IT schools than any other part of the other part of the country. Those graduates tend to do better. We tend to have more startups per capita. That's sort of the infrastructure the government provides. We also provide infrastructure together with the Commonwealth on the enabling stuff that you need, so broadband and the things that you require to get your job done. We also do things that you cannot do for yourself. So government in Victoria takes startups and established businesses alike overseas on trade missions. We make the introductions that are required to grow overseas. So anyone with trade intent is a customer of ours, if you will. We also do a little bit of advocacy. So where there are issues that can't be resolved in our own jurisdiction, but say has a place in the Commonwealth, our role is to then advocate for a better outcome. And finally, there's a fifth thing that I just can't remember. Oh yes, it's red tape. So particularly when you start businesses and you do the things you need to do, government tends to regulate things and with the utmost of respect to my colleagues, also tends to get in the way. And one of the things that government should be doing is finding ways to get itself out of your way so that you can grow your businesses. If you look to one of the leading startups globally, Philip Noyce from Intel, when he was asked by the president of the day, I forget who it was, so what can we do to help your business grow? He said, give me some educated people and get out of my way. So that's the sort of attitude that we need in government to take. So give you the things you need to get going, $100,000 over a couple of years to help this flourish. Help you make trade connections globally, help get you the education, the educated people you need, the job-ready people you need, but just get out of the way. So that's our contribution.
Thank you. My name is Tessa Court, and I'm the CEO of Intelligence Bank, and I guess I'll talk about this from a founder's point of view. So when I started my company 4 years ago, partnership was the last thing on my agenda. It was about creating the product and selling it, and I had no time to fill out the paperwork for a government grant. It was a nightmare. So even though it's all very good and you need that, and so one of the things that I think I didn't do well at the start was seek out the community and partnerships with other organizations. Last year I did a technology accelerator called Springboard. It's geared towards women, but there are zillions of technology accelerators out there. And it was literally changed the business that we're in now. And I think, you know, when you're starting a company, you're head down, you're in survival mode, you're trying to get a product out, you're trying to sell, you want to make sure it's up and running. And the last thing you have time for is nurturing those relationships. And it's really important you do that because there are a lot of people out there, even though you know everything, there are a lot of people out there who know a lot more and can connect you. And for the founders out there as well, they can teach, you know, these sorts of programs can teach you investor speak, and they can teach you about what investors want to see and about how to scale your business and how to become more operationally effective. So I think that was the best thing I ever did from a partnership perspective, and I'm really glad I did that. And as for government, I mean, I think there's some great, R&D tax incentives, which we wouldn't be profitable and around today if it weren't for those government grants. But I also think the best way to support one another as well is, especially with government, is to buy local products. We're actually tendering for a government job right now. But what's nice about it, whether we win or lose it, what's nice is that we're being considered by the Victorian government, and we're up against, multinationals. So I think, if you want to show support, buy local and buy startups and give people a chance. And, we were very fortunate to have some really big banks and some really big companies have faith in us early on, and that's what has led to our success.
Terrific, thanks, Tessa. So what I'll do is I'll take questions from the audience, but first, am I thinking of a question? And make yourself known to me when you've got one by giving me weird eye contact or movements or something like that. That lets me know that you want to do something. The first question for me is to Grantley. Grantley, so if I come to you and I flail about and I want some support, I think I've got something great. I know it's going to be difficult to engage with government like that. What does the perfect kind of engagement, the perfect way that you can partner and help someone look like? Does someone have to know exactly what they want, or have they got some great value but they don't know how to articulate it? Or what is the perfect, and can you use some examples of how you help people to kind of put that perspective?
Tough question to answer quickly, but let me have a stab at it. I can ask Kathy and Stuart to stand up, wave hands, make themselves known. These are people who work in the team here. There are others back at the ranch. We have an organised program that deals with the needs of small business and particularly business in the tech sector. So come to us. We are apparently easy. We certainly pride ourselves, try very hard to be easy to deal with. We don't need, at the early stage of engagement, a fully functional business case. That's part of the thing we can do to help. There are a number of things, as Tessa was saying, that once we begin to understand your needs, we can then push you in the right direction. As the Minister said, there are a number of grants that are available, some of them up to 250K, so significant chunks of change. But we also have in my department a $20 million fund that looks at innovation in government business. So these are contestable, so that we're going to need some kind of contest to come in. But we are trying to be innovative in government. And I tell my colleagues a lot, every opportunity I can, when we're looking at IT projects and buying services in government, think like a startup. Give us projects that are small, expandable, extendable, all of those sorts of things, and that's a way that we will get money in government to do projects, and this is the sort of people that we're looking for. People who think different. We wasted, according to our audit, internal audit, billions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. That's by having very large IT projects that have very long-term to value, and usually drop in one go about 3 years' time. And the only thing you know about that is it's going to cock up. So what we're looking to do here is engage with the startup community in ways that are just different. So think outside the square. When I'm talking to my government colleagues about projects, I often sort of use this dichotomy between the suits and the hoodies. This is the suits, and there are not many of you, and I've never felt so strongly about looking at the startup community here, that difference between suits and hoodies. That we just think differently to the founders and the people who are leading innovation in this state.
Thanks, Carl. Fantastic. So, first question from Charlie. If you could speak loudly and clearly so the audience can hear you. Stand up. Terrific.
Hi, Charles Crouch. I'm a local teacher here. I've been teaching in this area for probably about 10 years. Very few of my students in classes are actually techie-oriented. They tend to come out of regular businesses, but they need to understand this technical environment. What can you do to help them? I appreciate the technical community who's here tonight, but there's probably 90% who are not here. What can we do for them?
And who's that? Anyone particularly you want to?
Tessa, I think.
Sure. that's easy. Yeah, I mean, I'm not technical. I have a master's in Latin American political theory and Spanish. So the less you know, the better. So look, I think running a technology company, it's about innovation and making things. So, you know, you could have a teacup factory, you don't necessarily know how to put the teacups together, but you can make something and you have a vision to do that. And with Intelligence Bank, for instance, for me, it was all about seeing a problem out there in the world that information wasn't being shared effectively across different applications, and I wanted to go make that. And the good news about technology now is that it's very commoditized. So you can have relatively little amount of capital to get a prototype at least up and started. Now, when you scale and grow bigger, you need to know what you're doing, and you need to have the systems and processes in place. But all of that can be hired in and managed. So I don't think, I think at the start it was very stressful for me that I couldn't fix it if it broke, but it's something that you can definitely outsource as long as it's within your organization. I also think, you know, RMIT has a great entrepreneurs program. I haven't been there, but I know a lot of people who've done it, and these people are just guns. Like, they just want to go out there and start businesses. You know, a friend of mine, she has a wine business from that. Another has a small food company, and then there's some other technology businesses I know about. So I think it comes down to, you know, the guts that you have to go out and do something, whether you understand it or not, but you're solving a problem.
I might have to go that one as well. So in terms of just into the opportunities which are available, from entrepreneurial curiosity all the way through to support, which is available for companies who want to go offshore, I think, you know, every single night of the week almost, or every weekend, there is an event on to almost cater for every mix of individual or interest or gender or background, and really to actually help to promote that. So, you know, at the York Butter Factory last year, there was more than 200 events. That's one venue. We've got like 10 co-working spaces in Victoria that are available to people. So the community is embryonic yet very, very vibrant, and I think, you know, the representation in this room indicates how much opportunity there truly is, coming out of universities, coming out of government support, coming out of the founders and the success stories that they're able to actually share with you. Startup weekends, Lean Startup, there's just an endless list of support available. You don't need to go far, but just even look up Meetup group to find it. I'm very sorry.
Daniel, you had a question.
Yeah, hi. Daniel from Startup Foundation. Tessa, Stuart, this one's for Gordon. Assuming that I'm an entrepreneur with an interest in dealing with government, the challenge for me is that if I'm competing against very large organisations, the ICT, I suppose that the infrastructure around doing jobs for government, 200-page proposals. How does state government make it easier for me as an entrepreneur to compete against very large organisations to do government work?
This is sort of the double-edged sword of government business. We are spending money that we take out of the economy from people, so we need to spend it wisely. We are trying very hard to change the way we procure things. The 200-page application or tender is just nuts. It doesn't create value for anyone. And what we are trying to do in the IT world, and one of the things that Gordon was saying earlier on, we are trying very hard to make sure that we have projects that are contestable but small. What we're trying to foster here is diversity in the people providing services to us. Historically, the government procurement is, we'll fill a black box with a whole swag of requirements that mostly don't meet our requirements, our needs anyway. We'll throw them over the fence, then the market tries to interpret it, then throws it back. What we're doing now increasingly is engaging with industry as early as we can to have them understand our needs. We're publishing procurement pipelines now. We'll do more of that. And we're looking now to have projects that are small and scalable rather than large and cumbersome, and hold us to account on that.
Thanks, Carly. Actually, and one for me to you, Stuart. What I want to make sure that we get out tonight is when we look at investors as partners for startups, the market is changing fairly rapidly at the moment with a plethora of kind of new ways of funding, new ideas on funding, and the parcels of funding have become smaller and smaller. In theory, that makes it look like maybe it's potentially easier to get small chunks of capital, but still the question remains, which is the right capital to get, which are the right people to partner with? Can you give some thoughts on that?
Yeah, certainly. So I guess, fundamentally, if you're thinking about investment or sourcing capital, you really need to do your research on who it is that that is a compatible investor for what you're looking to do. And as mentioned, there is an increasing number of sources of capital which are becoming available. That could be angel level funding through organisations such as Melbourne Angels, or even locations such as Aurelius Digital, which host a number of events. There's crowdfunding, which should possibly come online depending upon government regulations. There's things like Angel List, which are available. There's incubator programs like Angel Cube here in Melbourne, StartMate more broadly. There's an enormous number of opportunities, and the government does an enormous amount in terms of its infrastructure to really support the community if they've got a valid claim. And some of them are extremely generous as to essentially, if you want to go to a conference in the United States, the MMV Trip Grant certainly has supported, I think, a lot of people over the years. But in terms of if you are looking for serious investment capital, there is definitely an increasing number of options at the angel and seed level. We're even now starting to get some growth capital investors into the community. Now, there's obviously been a lot of conjecture as to essentially performance of venture capital in Australia, venture capital in Melbourne. That potentially is rightly placed. Our performance needs to definitely improve, but it's not the venture capitalists, it's not the angel investors that drive that. It's actually you guys as founders and the mission of Startup Victoria, which are going to make the difference to that.
Thanks, Stuart. And you at the back. If you could speak loudly and clearly and throw your voice as much as possible. I'm sorry, I can't hear you properly. So did you get that?
I got it, yeah. So did anyone hear the question? I'm going to answer the question. So the question was along the lines of, yeah, we've given 100K over a couple of years, but show us the love other than that. And I don't sound disparaging. And there are a number of other possibilities. Yeah, so. Yeah, well, we're spending Victorian money, so we want to at least keep it within the borders. So we're looking for local benefit. So the question is, do we want to fly people in or have people come in? Yes, we do a number of things. First, as Stuart said, we provide help for people to export. We are looking at the ways that we can mirror other jurisdictions. So the City of Brisbane actually has a pretty neat program about innovation hubs, not dissimilar to this, and we're looking to learn from them. I think I'm spending a fair bit of time in the next day or two with the City of Melbourne just to figure out what between the state and the City of Melbourne we can do. There are other possibilities to deal with our procurement, but I'm not sure that beyond the 100K, that we can gift a whole lot more. But look, happy to take it offline and see what else we can do. We don't profess to have all of the wisdom of the world, and we do what we can to learn from as many people as we can.
Tessa, do you want to go as well?
Yeah, I hear you and I share your pain and I share the thought about that, but I actually don't think it's government's job to fund startups. I think it's government's job to provide the environment, the infrastructure, and the tax breaks for us to employ people. So if I think about the greatest thing I've done with Intelligence Bank, it's that I employ 15 people, and the government of Victoria should decrease the payroll tax for us or do other things that are within its realm to do. I think investing directly is, you have smaller funds that you can help out around the edges, but it's not really, I wouldn't view that that's a government mandate to do that directly. But there are things that they can do to help.
Good, thanks, Tessa. Lenny, you had a question. Loud and clear.
Before my question, Kathy here's got a great answer to Charles Crouch earlier. I don't know if you give her a moment on the mic.
Kathy, come on up. So you can introduce yourself first.
Thank you. Kathy Coulters from the Department of State Development, Business and Innovation. I work with Grantley. The question was around non-technology companies understanding how technology can assist them and trying to do better with technology. So there is a local industry association called ASMEA, Australian Small Business Enterprise Alliance. It is based here in Melbourne. They have websites on LinkedIn. That heads it up is Brad Birchall. That is their specific role. That is their absolute aim in life, is to work with SMEs across the economy in any sector to get them to understand how they may better use technology to improve their efficiency and productivity. That's what they do. So any of your students, any company that is not a technology company that doesn't really understand or is perplexed about how they might use technology, ASMEA talks to people, runs courses, provides advice, the whole story. They're here based in Melbourne. I'm happy to give anyone a card who would be interested to hear about ASMEA. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. And Lenny, your question?
My question is to Stuart. So Stuart, from your sort of vantage point, what's the best story you can tell where a startup has benefited from a partnership?
I guess in terms of the partnerships, they come in all different shapes and sizes, and I guess one that I'm particularly close to is one which has sort of recently really come to find traction. That company is a company called One-to-One-Cast, which was nothing but an idea and a pitch deck in March of 2011. Now we wind the clock forward, and what we see is that this company has managed to partner with Southern Cross Austereo in order to actually access their content. So they've really spent a lot of time working out what is it that makes their business successful, what is it that really drives opportunities for them. Now, the Southern Cross Austereo and One-to-One-Cast opportunity is not just one partnership that they were able to actually pull together, but it's one of many. And I guess it's sort of, from the participation of the Singtel Innovate seed program that they worked with as their media company, through to the work that they do across the community in terms of engaging with the York Butter Factory community and the Inspire 9 communities to really sort of push the boundaries. But fundamentally, if you're going to run and chase down a partnership, it's got to be of mutual benefit. So for Southern Cross Austereo, they know that radio is a traditional media form. They know that it's really difficult to measure what actually happens within radio once it's actually broadcast across the radio waves. They need to be able to measure in order to essentially charge for advertising. And One-to-One-Cast has a solution for that through their application called Omni, which enables not only live streams, but actually the ability to measure who's listening, when they're listening, how many times they're listening, and then if you've got things like Facebook or other connections, you can actually measure who it is in terms of their sociographic aspects. But I guess that's sort of just a very tangible example where somebody started with just simply a pitch deck, a matter of years ago, and now essentially has one of Australia's largest media companies as not only an investor but actually a strategic partner. And to be honest, I think there's numerous examples of those, but that's certainly one that is close to me as a founding investor, and I guess close to the community, because I think most of you will have met the founding group from One to One Cast.
Thanks, Stuart. Okay, so one from me. This is to you, Tessa. I want you're listed on my bio as the CEO of Intelligence Bank.
Yep.
And Director of Intelligence Bank. You're also the co-founder, so I just want you to wind back the clock and talk about choosing a partner and why did you choose, what attributes you need to have, and why did you choose partnership with that person rather than just simply buying services?
Sure, well, he's my husband, so I don't have a choice, no. So in my case, so my husband is the co-founder of Intelligence Bank, and that's a whole other kind of can of worms, I guess, working with your husband or wife, but
not necessarily uncommon.
Not uncommon at all. So I think, well, I'll say two things about that. So firstly, I guess in my situation, so my husband actually had the idea for Intelligence Bank. So he had a market research company, and he had Intelligence Bank as his way to effectively and quickly share video and also document content with his clients to share customer insights. And he said, and I was at Hitwise with several people here in the room, and we exited Hitwise, and he said, gosh, lots of clients are saying, can I have an Intelligence Bank for my own information? Do you want to just come start this as a little part-time job? And I said, sure, that'll be fun. And it's turned into this behemoth, I guess, since then. But working with a spouse is actually very difficult. VCs hate it. First and foremost, they think, if you get divorced, there goes the company. So that's one problem. The other thing is that there's no divide between home and work, which is really hard. So we have the Sabbath on Saturday where we just take a break and don't talk about work for 24 hours, which is good. But a lot of people have been asking me, I've been mentoring a lot of young women about starting technology companies, and they say, oh, I need a partner, I'm so lonely, I need to get someone to bounce ideas off of, and I'm like, that's an expensive way to do it. You can hire those people if you need to. So I think if you're going to have a co-founder, it's really important that you have very complementary skills that you can bring to the table that you can't outsource at all. So I also think that it's more important than your marriage. It's your business, and you are with that person day in, day out, and so picking that person is the most important decision you'll make for the company as well.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I think the most important. So what are kind of the top 3 things that you have to get right to start your business for a startup? Is that right? Okay. I think the most important thing is market fit. You can build anything relatively inexpensively. If you're a founder and you're driven, you can sell a couple of them, which is quite important, which is good. But really ensuring that there is a mass need for your product is by far the most important thing you can do. And it took us a long time to do that, and I have a marketing background, so it took us a good 3 years to figure out what that niche fit is. So I think that's really important. I also think the other thing is distribution. So understanding how you're going to sell it. So you can go around and sell to people you know and people in your network, sell to the government, sell to lots of different people, but really understanding for the price point that you have, the most cost-effective way to sell is by far the second most important thing. And then the third thing was, and I learned this quite late, is the importance of teams. So for a long time, I kind of wore it as a badge of honor, like, I started this business, I do everything, isn't this great? But it really wasn't great. I was kind of burning out, and you need people around you that you don't have the same, that where you lack and who can offer other skills. And so even when you're going to investors to pitch a new business or to pitch investment for your business, saying, hi, I founded this company, I'm profitable, I do everything, is not attractive to a VC. They want to know that there are other people within the organization that can pull their weight and to make it happen as well.
Thanks, Tessa. So what I'd actually like to do is also get Stuart to, I haven't told you I wanted to do this, but also have a chat about, take off your investor hat and talk about some of your businesses. You had a highly successful consulting business after you left the Air Force, but despite that it was highly successful, it ultimately fell apart. And I wonder if you could talk about some of the lessons that you learnt in hindsight about your partnership.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting topic.
You've thought about it.
I certainly have, as most people do who've had relationships or partnerships that don't go 100% well. And if you know life, then you probably know that life changes as you follow your own journey. So really, I guess, in terms of my experience around partnerships, it's critically important to understand, I guess, that why are you actually in a partnership, and have an alignment of goals and an alignment of values as to exactly where you want to take things. And if when they sort of start to actually separate, then you've obviously got a fairly significant problem. Hence why probably VCs don't like spouses as the founding team.
Could you just put a bit of meat on that to give it context as well with your business?
Yeah, so sure. So my consulting company was very successful. I founded it in 2002. We grew that business triple-digit growth for 6 years straight. BRW, fast starters, upstarts, all those sorts of nice accolades. But fundamentally, that doesn't mean much when there's a disagreement with the two naming partners on the door, with actually what the opportunity for the business was on an enduring and scalable basis. So effectively, what I had to do was actually shut my company down and flip it over to voluntary administrators, which, if you've probably been through life, then maybe you've had some injuries. This for me was like cutting off probably one of my arms. Not that I've done that, but it really was a massive, toll that it actually took. It took me quite a bit of time to recover from that. So like most things, it's you almost go through, I guess, a grieving process, because it was very, very difficult time to I guess, really transition from something which you put all of your heart, energy and time and money for that matter into, but you really need to actually be able to transition forward and ultimately you can hit some pretty low times. And as entrepreneurs out there, you need to know one thing, and that's that there isn't a beautiful montage of activities that and events that happen which see you to become a Mark Zuckerberg, a Lenny Mayo, a Hitwise founder, a Sausage founder, a Redbubble founder, an Intelligence Bank founder. There is nothing but a lot of hard work, a lot of disappointments, and a lot of grinding that makes all the difference. And so when you lose a lot, you also value what you actually achieve a lot more. And it's a lot of the little things that make all the difference. So if you'd like to hear my story, I'm happy to share it in person, but yeah, I wasn't sure I was going to get that question. Thanks, Brendan.
No worries. Happy to help out. Right, so the next question I'd like to actually put to Grantley. One of the things that's happening very much, I can see this in the last decade, is that the life cycle time for startups appearing, building, changing, building, and disappearing again is increasing to accelerate. The cost to build a startup is reducing quite dramatically. The timeframes are also compressing. How does the government then react to that when businesses are being, ideas are being created, businesses are being built and disbanded in smaller timeframes than actually the government plans, the government processes for giving grants, etc. So how do you engage in the startup community when you're working in one time frame and the startup community is now working in a completely different and much smaller compressed time frame?
Yeah, the government's not renowned for reacting as quickly as the market The reality is, however, that we have some reasonably robust processes when we deal with new businesses. So it's not that tough for us to respond. So look, it's not that tough. We understand that business cycles are what they are. To some extent, government should be impartial as to the success of each individual business. It's not our role to make sure that absolutely everyone is happy. I think Stuart's example is a great one. That the market needs to work and the government should not be intervening too much in the market. However, when we are intervening, we're providing grants and those sorts of things. Really, the only we've got a couple of acid tests, and the only one of those is that at the time that we're dealing with companies for grants and so forth, that they look like they're solvent. And that's simply it. It's a relatively simple test. We don't want to be in the position of giving a firm the last dollar before it goes bankrupt. So the only thing that we really worry about is it solvent?
All right, I'd like to move on now and also a bit about paperwork and formalisation of agreements. Stuart, in terms of you're seeing opportunities and deal flow at a variety of different stages, at what kind of formalisation of co-founder or partnership agreements do you like to see at different stages? Because obviously on day one, to get carried away with a shareholder agreement can just be just too much overhead. So what do you like to see?
Yeah, look, I guess what we look for is that we look for, product market fit is probably a well overused term. Traction is another one. We also like to see relevance in the founder's background as to the market they're actually trying to disrupt. So we're certainly looking very strongly at that. In terms of the legal documents which exist between founders, those sorts of things, what we like is pretty standardized documents. So there's a number of different sets of open source legal documents which cover shareholders agreements all the way through the spectrum, from StartMate, from DLA Piper, from Aurelius Digital. There's numerous of them which you can effectively crowdsource, which give you a basic, grassroots level of simple, requirements that legally will represent you well, but not over-represent the investor in the process. So one of the biggest issues that getting funding used to actually incur was the friction that existed between the angel investor and actually the entrepreneur themselves. They'd spend 6 months and probably half the money they're actually raising to actually spend on legal fees to get an agreement done. And that doesn't help anybody. And in the speed of business that as it has been doing, and as it is done today, and the business world is changing, you need to move far, far faster. So to use these open source documents to start yourself off is a much, much better way. And there's even now low-cost legal services which are popping up every other week, which are available to you that can really help and right-size to your requirements. You don't need a tier 1 law firm to do your initial documentation.
Brilliant, thanks Stuart. You sir, you had a question. If you can speak loudly and clearly to the audience.
Sure, we're all starting up. Everyone's here interested in what everyone's got to say. But everyone here, I think, has got an idea in their head. And as was pointed out before, we've all got full-time jobs, and to spend that extra 30 hours on our idea that we've got in the back of our mind and have had for the last 5 years is very difficult to bring out in front. It's very hard to develop something on your own. And I found that because I've developed ALGMO, which is online, from scratch for myself. And I sit there in front of the TV, I'm very successful, make lots of money, but I find I get very lonely talking to myself, not somebody else. Is there, my question then comes to this, is there going to be a place where everybody then can register and say, hey, I've got this idea, or I'm looking for somebody like this and I'm looking for somebody like that, so that we can go around and say, hey, that's like my that lady might sound interesting.
Yeah, so I think that's a really good point, and that was my point, actually. Look, I think one of the things that's really hard as a founder to do is you're very good at selling your product because you've made it, it's your idea, you're passionate about it, you spend every second of your life thinking about it. And the thing that I realized I was really bad at before I did this technology accelerator is sell the business. So when I would go see VCs, I would say, oh, an intelligence bank can do this, this, and this, and this. Oh, and we're just about to add this new feature. And isn't it great because our client at NAB loves this, this, and this. And they don't care about that. Like, that's not what they care about. They want to know about, you need to sell the business, not the product. And learning to tell the story of your business it seems really simple in hindsight, but it was something that I had to learn to do, and I had to do well, because I think I was boring the tears out of most investors before I learned how to do that. And what investors want to hear about is how big it's going to get, how you have the team to pull it off, how you're going to scale, how you're going to sell it. So very basic things, and it seems really obvious, but most founders, I think, whether they're marketing or not, are actually quite bad at that, because they're so in love with their product. And so it's a very different audience. So one of the things that really helped me, I guess, during my journey for capital raising, we raised $2 million in November here in Australia locally, which is a great outcome, was being able to tell the story on a one-page piece of paper with slides on your different milestones and how you're going to get from X number of customers to Y number of customers, and how is that $2 million going to get you from here to there, and talking about, I guess, all the different things that need to go into it from a staff perspective, from a product, from marketing, and talking about it that way, that just became a really easy sell in my mind, but I had to learn how to do that, and putting something on one page is not an easy thing. So that would be my one, aside from market fit, I think that's another really good piece of advice, to sell your business, not just the product.
Thanks, Tessa. Ram, have you got any thoughts you'd like to share?
Many. Government is, again, limited in what it can do to partner with business. That said, as I said earlier on, we do 5 things, and that's our core mission, to use Lenny's words. We're here to provide infrastructure and support that business can't find itself. A lot of that's education and some of these other things. We do a great job in advocacy. So if there is something that that business can't get by itself, but partnering with a state government can get, again, that's a role for government. We advocate to private sectors, we advocate to banks, insurance companies, our own internal crap, for example, payroll. I'm not sure we can do much with there, but we advocate to the Commonwealth. There are a number of things that government can do to help. That is part of our core mission. One of the things that the government, particularly this state government in this time, is very passionate about is overseas trade or trade intention. So if there are any firms here that have got past that sort of founding stage and are now interested in taking their product to the world, we are absolutely ready for that. We are looking to drive trade out of Victoria into other countries, particularly Asia, Middle East and the US. That's where we spend a lot of our time. We are in the Asian time zone. There are a lot we can do to help firms establish themselves in Asia. We have a network of people on the ground in these countries, and we have a collection of people, dozens of them, in the Department of Business, the Business and State Development, that are there to help people export. We're also, they're a little bit, to some extent, at cross purposes with what you're looking for, but we're also looking for foreign direct investment. So there are other firms globally and wealthy individuals who we would want to invest in Victoria, and we want them to invest in infrastructure. We want them to invest in our startup communities. Again, that's another role for government. But I think principally, if there is anything that is in those, that list of 5 categories of things, we'd love to hear the story. I'm also responsible in part for small business development, and we have a bunch of stuff there through business.vic.gov.au. Again, that's resources for startups. A little more benign than being here in the hothouse, but nonetheless, resources we can provide. And I guess the other thing we're interested in partnering is actually just hearing good ideas. As I said earlier on, and maybe I didn't quite communicate this that well, but we have a very large investment fund, and we are interested in pitches for that. We're looking for smart firms who can help us solve wicked government problems, because we've been at this a very long time, and if the problem in government still exists, it means we haven't been able to think our way around it. And what we are looking for is talented people, talented firms who can help us with our own problems. There are mechanisms for that. I'll leave them with Lenny or with Brendan or someone. There's a website, and I don't even get the bit before the .au. But there is a website where firms can pitch to us about problems that we have.
Terrific, thanks, Grantley. And Stuart?
Look, don't think 3 minutes is required, but choosing the startup path, choosing the entrepreneurial journey is choosing a fucking hard road. There is no two ways about it. There are no free rides. If you're relying upon government to be successful, you're relying upon mediocre success. You need to be able to rely upon yourselves and the partnerships that you form in order to be successful. Part of that comes from these events, but most of it comes from the hard work which is done behind closed doors and the hustling that you do to create something which is extraordinary. If you want to just do the ordinary stuff, just keep doing what you're doing, just roll along. But entrepreneurship is tremendously rewarding, and I couldn't encourage anybody for any other career choice other than it, but don't do it with the misconception that it's an easy road. It's a really hard road, but immensely rewarding road. So I hope and wish you all the best on your own entrepreneurial journeys.
So on that note, thank you, Stuart, and thank you, Grantley, and thank you, Tessa. And if I could just ask Michelle Burke, one of the directors of Startup Victoria, to step up to the stage and I'll let you all know about what Startup Victoria is up to next.
Excellent. Do you want me to take this one? Hello everyone. I know that you're all kind of wanting to head home for the night, but I just wanted to tell you about how we've been working really hard over the last month to create something that's really valuable for founders. And we did that by sending out a survey to our Lean Startup members and getting your feedback on what you see as valuable to become a Startup Victoria member. Now, as Brendan mentioned earlier, how Startup Victoria evolves depends on you guys. So we'd really love your support. I run a couple of startups myself, so I wouldn't be standing up here saying that it's all good to join if I didn't want to join myself. And at 3:30 a.m. this morning, I actually became the first member as we were testing our Stripe payment system. Okay, so for founders, premium membership is $99 a year. And what you'll get is exclusive first access to all paid events and workshops and 25% off all paid events and workshops. And also $4,800 worth of a whole heap of goods and freebies and discounts. So that's including stuff like $50 credited Elance, 4 months free with MYOB, which was mentioned by MYOB at the start there, plus a free hour session setup with an accounting firm, 12 months free with Atlassian, 12 months free with Learnable, and a whole heap of other offers from places which you'll probably know, like 99 Designs, Bug Herd, Gecko Board, Help Scout, Hub Melbourne, Merchant Warrior, Pin Payments, Roy Morgan, Swiftly, Udemy, Zendesk, and Stripe Payments. Now, we'll be building out to the question I think that was asked toward the end. We will be building out our digital capability over the next year for members, so whatever stage your startup is at, you can interact with other people online. You can, what we're hoping for is, test out your ideas, get access to resources, libraries, market research, and find beta testers, etc., etc. So that's what we'll be building out in the coming 12 months. Of course, we're a startup in and of ourselves, so this night is our MVP. Lastly, importantly, as a member, you'll also get the opportunity to vote for existing and new board members each year at our annual general meeting, and that's held in November. So the current board members are Lenny, Brendan, myself, and Scott Hansecker, somewhere in the room. So please jump online on your phone or when you get home. We're using Stripe payments, so it all works nicely on the phone. Anyone who signs up in the next month gets a founding member badge once we pop online and get our digital capability going. So if you have any questions or suggestions, please do email me direct, michelle@startupvictoria.com.au. Thank you for coming along tonight, and have a great evening.
Thanks, Michelle. So we're almost done. I'd just like to once again say thank you to the Honourable Gordon Rich Phillips MLC for coming in and sharing his thoughts with us. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Elance, MYOB, DLA Piper, BlueChilli, Inspire 9, Kussowski Brothers and Vinomofo for helping making this all possible. I'd like to thank all of you for coming along and giving the audience and giving the vibe that's in the room tonight, which is just fantastic. And I'd like to also encourage you to hang around and network, because the relationship, opportunities come through people. They don't come from technology or innovation, they really come through people, people's insights, people you meet, people who give you access. So network, hang around.